Jesus knew the weaknesses of man. He had taken upon the flesh so that he could experience what we experience, but also that he could demonstrate to us the authority, the power that God had implanted within us so that we could overcome all that would come against us and live life out victoriously as God intended it to be from the very beginning. It is amazing how that we have interpreted scriptures in manners which may not be exactly the way they were written. It's amazing that as we listen to God speak to us, we can begin to see that the words written prior had different meanings than perhaps they do today. And so it challenges us to really let God speak to us and show us his ways. The scriptures talk about welfare. In our society today, welfare is being in need and wanting and receiving from others to take care of our needs. Welfare in Scripture in the time of Scripture, was not meant that. It was meant to be that you had everything you needed and you were lacking in nothing. So it's very careful that we must consider the things that God speaks to us. The last 19 Sundays, the last 18, this being the 19th, the scriptures have been unfolded before us, helping us to realize and understanding who we are and what God has implanted within us as the effort or the being that we are in his kingdom. For most of us, we have been trained by the system of man, and that system does not receive the blessings or the provision that God promised because it's not the way he created us. It's contrary. This is why we have the conflict. It's why we have the battles. It's why we have the pain and the sorrow. Because we are living a life given to us in fullness as though it were empty and lacking in all things. And it basically boils down to attitude. What we believe. We believe that we are not capable. We believe that we are insufficient. We believe that we are lacking. When in reality, all of those things are not true. The truth is, God has given to us everything we need. When we grasp the understanding of that, even in the midst of need, we will be satisfied. Because as Paul said in one of his writings, he said, I have learned to be able to contend with whatever I have, whatever the circumstances may be. I'm content because I know God supplies. He will take care of me. We are challenged by the system of man to push ourselves into positions and situations thinking that we can take care of ourselves, when in reality it all comes to an end at one time or another. The gospel today has a picture in the temple in Jerusalem. Part of the temple was built and set for people to come for prayer. It was not a service or a mass that they were coming for, but they were coming for prayer. And it was set in their traditions that they were to pray 3 times a day. In our time zone, it would be 9 o'clock in the morning, 12 noon, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you'll notice in Scripture, the times are based basically on 3-hour segments. It's the 11th hour, it's the, whatever it may be that all these events take place. It's not according to our clock, but according to the time in which they were living at that time. So they were encouraged to pray 3 times a day. Now, if you could pray in the temple, this was supposed to be what this was for. You would go to the temple being the place where God was supposedly living. They would go there to pray to God. And so the symbolism of coming before God to offer our prayers to Him, it was in their time physical. But the spiritual impact of it is what we look at, because these things were given to us to understand the symbols, not necessarily the literal. Coming to God 3 times a day, 9, 12, and 3. And if you could get to the temple, you were able to go there, you were given, according to their thoughts, you were given more attention to your prayer because you were praying it closer to God. Was not necessarily true, but yet the image of it, the spiritual impact of it, is to speak to us about a relationship before God, being close to Him, so that we know He hears our prayers. Because the Scriptures tell us if He hears our prayers, He will answer them. We are shown by Christ these 2 people that are at the hour of prayer. One, a Pharisee. The other, a tax collector. The Pharisee, in kind terminology, was a hypocrite. That's kind. His whole life was built on the fact that he was better than everybody else. He was a Pharisee. He's a member of this group of people that were the ones who crucified Christ. They were better than everybody else. He dressed that way. He lived his life that way. He was, normally they were wealthy people, and they made themselves present wherever they would go in glorious attire and demanding great attention, always wanting people to see them and to recognize them as better than they, and they demanded to be treated that way. So here is this Pharisee, and the word Pharisee comes from a phrase in the Hebrew which means separate, and they were separated. If you understand Christianity, Christianity is not separation, but it's unity. So this again speaks to us of this man's character. He came to the temple at the hour, proper hour. He came in full glorious attire. And it says he took a stance in front of all the people. In other words, he didn't find a hiding place, just humbling himself, but he came to the place where everybody would see him, and he took the stance of praying. His head probably was back because he was above everybody else. But notice what the Scripture says. He was praying to himself. Wasn't praying to God. This shows, attitude that some people have, thinking that they are better than others. Some wealthy people, and I'm not talking about just here in our societies, but in the whole world. Wealthy people go to church to be seen, not to recognize or honor God or to bless God, but they go to be seen. And in some cases, they would always come late, so that they would be seen entering, and everybody would know it's them, and they would demand a seat near the front, so that everybody can see, look at my jewelry, look at my attire, look at my dress, look at my purse, where it came from, look at the name on it. Not coming to worship God, but coming for worship of self, exalting self as being already righteous, more righteous than others. And his prayer, it says his prayer was, I thank thee that I am not like these other people. He wouldn't get in the midst of them because he didn't want them to touch him. They were not clean. He was elite. And so he prays to God, I'm glad I'm not like these other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, even like this tax collector. Even his attitude was not an attitude of praise, it was condemnation, judgment. Yet he was impressing upon other people his own goodness, but not being accepted by God. And I think this is something that we have to be very cautious with in our lives, because it's very common for us to judge others when we may not know the circumstances or the reasons for whatever is going on at the moment in their life. It's so easy to think, oh, I'm better than they are. I confess that sometimes this is a thought I have when you're in your automobile and you're coming up to a stoplight. These children come over to the window and rub on the window. I just had the car clean, and they're rubbing on the window, and you want to go boom. They were trying to get your attention. It may not be proper, it may not be good, but in reality, they're trying to reach out to you and touch your heart so you will take care of them. And it's so easy to get out of here, get lost, when you may have right there in the place beside you all kinds of coins which you could easily have passed on to them, but you judge. You judge. Just a simple thing. Because this judgment goes on into many aspects of our life wherein we feel that other people are not like us. Scripture says all have sinned. All. Now, if this is true, how can we point a finger to someone else? Many times when you hear people attacking someone else, you can be almost certain that they're guilty of what they're attacking someone of, because it's like it's making them a little irritated to see somebody like that, knowing they were failing in their own life, and they draw attention to the other one. Almost certain. Especially like in the areas of politics. There are very few righteous politicians. When it comes to many areas of this many of them corrupt in many different ways, yet they attack each other. This is a weakness of humanity. And it's a weakness that comes from knowing who we are and understanding the grace, the mercy, and the love of God. Pharisee, praying to himself, convincing himself, I am better than all of these. Then we see the picture that he begins to paint before the people, because he's probably praying out loud. I fast twice a week. I fast twice a week. The Jewish rule was once a year. But people who want attention will always exalt or multiply the requirements to make people look at them and say, whoa, they're better than all the rest. Twice a week when the requirement was once a year. I fast. I'm better than all of you. You just don't know how good I am. And not only that, ooh, ouch, I pay tithe of all I get. This particular phrase here does not mean he's paying tithe on his earnings. He's paying tithe on everything he has. And I was thinking, wow, if he has a mansion and he's paying tithe on the mansion every week, no wonder the temple was filled with such riches. But it was because, look at me. I have known people who have built churches, and they take pride. Look what I did. I built the church. Doesn't make them any more righteous than anyone else when they're doing it for attention or for praise for themselves. They will boast about, I built the church. It was my money. I built the church. I paid tithe on everything. But then it looks now to another direction, the tax gatherer. Now the tax gatherer is a person who is disliked, hated by the people. He probably was a Jew, but he was an employee of the Roman government to collect taxes, appointed by the Roman government to collect tax. He's given instructions or permission to collect the tax on, given a standard that he has to collect, but if he can get more, he's given permission to get more, but he gets to keep the extra. The people know this, and they hate the tax collector. We live in a time when even if the tax collector doesn't take extra, we still hate them. Don't like it. But this man was one who was really, has the permission to abuse the people. But he was in the temple in a different attitude. He was not in the main area in front of all the people. He was off to the side where he wouldn't be seen. He wouldn't even lift his head because he recognized his unworthiness to be there. Yet he came to the temple at the hour of prayer. He was coming to approach God, but in a different attitude. I'm not worthy to be here. I have done wrong. He wouldn't lift up his eyes. But he was beating his chest. God, have mercy on me. He recognized his inability to be righteous. He recognized his sinful nature that he had allowed to rule over him. And he was confessing before God and asking for mercy. And Jesus, in looking at these two, he says, the one, the tax gatherer, left and went home more blessed than the one who was boasting of himself and all of his goodness. He didn't, the wealthy man, the Pharisee, was sufficient in his own abilities. He didn't need God. Is this not, in many cases, where much of society is today? We don't think we need God. I can take care of myself. I have all the abilities I need, and the world is building this imagery of being one to help man. Financially, emotionally, physically. We can take care of you. You need not worry about anything. We'll do it for you. And so we're trying to replace God. And this gospel teaches us to put our faith in God and to be sufficient in that confidence and not put down others. The only way that we can come to that point is when we know who we are, and we know that God is with us, and we are concerned that others would have that same peace, rather than judging them or condemning them or destroying them. We reach out to try to lift them up, to build them up, and to help them. Humility. The humbleness which is one of being secure in who I am, but yet not boasting about it or putting others down thinking that I am better than that. Because what I have received, I received it as a gift. I did not earn it. It was Christ who went to the cross to purchase my well-being, my life. And so any praise I would have would go to the cross, not in my efforts or what I have done. It's in Him. He is the source. Knowing that He is the source and knowing how powerful He is, it gives me security. So I'm not insecure and having to tell everybody how great I am. You see, this Pharisee was telling everybody how great he was because inside he's very insecure. He doesn't have the stability of Christ in him. He doesn't have the peace of God in him. No, he's built his whole life on his own ability, which is very unstable. Our emotions go this way, up and down, and our lives are not stable without Christ. That stability gives us an attitude much like Christ had, because Christ was one who was humble. He didn't boast about who he was. He didn't boast about his power and his ability. He showed it, but he showed it in simplicity and not in an attitude of being greater than others. He was not arrogant. He faced torture. He faced being assassinated, even hanging on the cross. Here's humility. He was the Son of God. He was the Son of God. He didn't deserve this. He was righteous. He knew no sin. But he did not murmur or complain or bring accusations against others. Instead, what we hear is, Father, forgive them. They do not know what they're doing. He did not judge us. We didn't want him. We wanted him dead because he was causing something within us which was not pleasing, because when he would speak the words he spoke, the evil that was in us was fighting against this. But he went to the cross in our behalf, setting a pattern for us on behalf of others. Even though they don't like you, even though they want to crucify you, even though they're gossiping against you, rather than reacting to that in the same manner, you react in a compassion and a love of restoration, humility. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know it's not true. I don't have to defend myself. You know, our normal reaction is when somebody accuses us of something we're not guilty of, we fight back. I have to defend myself. Our defense is in God. God will defend us. Amazingly, when someone attacks, if you will not react, what he attacks you with will come back to him and will destroy him. You don't have to do it. It's almost like you are rubber, and that which is thrown at you bounces off of you and goes back to the one who has attacked you. This is the way God created things from the very beginning. He's not involved in it himself now. He's given us this ability, and this is the way nature has been created. When you do something, it's going to come back to you. If you do good, it's going to come back to you. But if you do evil, defending yourself, attacking the other one, it will also come back to you. And so the thing that you want to be careful of is that you don't find yourself attacking others. Even if it's in defense, let them be the one. What they have said, they will answer for. It will not destroy you unless you allow it. And many times what happens is when somebody says something to us, we get angry. Then that anger affects us. Our choice. We did it. We did it. If we don't get angry at it, it will bounce off of us and go back and attack the other one. Now, it's not easy to just smile when somebody's punching you in the nose. Not easy. But if for a moment that anger comes, you realize, well, this is not right. Father, I failed here. Help me. I don't want this. And God will help you. Because this is what the tax collector was doing. I failed. I've made a mistake. Have mercy on me. For a moment, you know, if we're normal, if somebody attacks us, it will affect us. The words are harsh, they're mean, the accusation's not true. But when we just pause for a moment and calm down, take that peace, the thing that normally happens is the person attacking you is the one who gets angry because you don't get upset. You smile at them. Oh. They do it. They were the ones upset. It's their own reaction that's coming back against them. If you can maintain that faith and that confidence in God, that humility, I don't need to defend me. God is my defense. God will take care of me. He will provide for me. In the reading from the epistle today, Paul was writing to Timothy, and he talks about how that he's poured out his life. And the meaning here says poured out like a drink offering. It's literally saying everything I am, I did for God. I poured my life, everything I have, I've given to God. I didn't keep anything from me. I gave it all. I fought a good fight. I finished the course. The Lord will deliver me from every evil deed and bring me safely to his kingdom. To him be the glory. Not to us. To him. He will not fail. This is something we all need to grasp a hold and understand, because we've made our mistakes. But the Lord will deliver us from every evil deed and will bring us safely to his kingdom. To God be the glory. Not to us. Not to us. So how can we stand in arrogance thinking we're better than others? We can't. It's only because of the grace of God, his mercy. We reach out to help others who are less fortunate than we in knowing him, in walking with him, many different areas. We help them, even though they are attacking us. That humility brings God's blessings. 1 Peter chapter 5 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, before the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you." He may exalt you at the proper time. Not you exalting yourself. He will exalt you. Matthew 23, "Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted." Notice how God has set the course here in our lives. Humble yourself and you will be exalted. Don't worry about what they're saying. Don't worry about the attacks. Put your faith in God. God will defend you. Proverbs chapter 4, it says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." You go through the scriptures, and there's many, countless scriptures referring to humility, and how that this is the character that God created us to be. How many attacks have there been against God? How many attacks have man brought against God? If you think about it, look at Russia. This is one that's been cleared up. But they destroyed all the churches. You could not be a Christian, and there was not permitted, and everything with regard to religion was wiped out. Today, Russia's very religious. What the government destroyed, as far as churches are concerned, they restored. They built them back. This is what God will do. You attack him, eventually it will turn around and go the other way. Because God is going to be brought glorified before the end. So we put our confidence there in humility. You don't need to defend yourself. Let God be the one to defend you. When he defends you, the other ones will know. They will know it, because it will be evident in everything. Humility, very principle of our life. Principle, humility. Probably one of the most difficult to handle, because we don't really know what God has done for us. We don't realize that when Christ went to the cross, he did not just take away the sin. He did not, because his scriptures say, when the house is clean, you do not leave it empty, because if you leave it empty, the enemy will come back. How many times? I've forgotten exactly how many times he'll come back stronger. God would not clean us of the sin and leave us that way. He filled us with the very principle of God's life. He gave us everything at the cross. A new life. The old's gone, but you're not empty. The new has come. And all the new is from God. It's there, everything. Everything pertaining to life and godliness. You lack in no good thing. So the enemy can't come back because you're not empty. We are deceived by him many times, and we allow him to affect us when in reality he cannot, because Christ has filled us with his faith, with his goodness, his life, all that he is. He's filled us with it. We should be secure in that. So if somebody wants to say something about us, good. They're paying attention to me. They know who I am, and it's irritating them. Good. Now maybe they'll change. Because I'm not going to join in their battle. No, that will destroy me. I will instead be humble and say, thank you. You want to hit me again? I'll turn the other cheek. Because I'll get a new face with God. All things work together for good for those who will follow God. He gave the commandments. Humility is following them. Not my way, but thy will be done. Not my will, thy will be done. That's humility. That's where we need to follow Christ, because that's where we then get the blessings of his life provided us. He will not fail to be the source of greatness in each of us if we will walk with him. Be blessed. Our God is a great God.
Amen.
Be secure in that and secure in him. Amen.